a little bit. That's okay.
You're okay. You're not cut off. Let me just make sure we're live here. I'm pretty sure we're streaming. And then I'll start talking. This always starts with a little bit of awkwardness just as I make sure we are live. All right, we are live here on the Tennessee Holler. I'm Holler founder Justin Canoe. Thank you for joining us. We have a very special guest today. We're at tnholler.com is the website, at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook. We're also, as I was just telling Congressman Cohen, at Memphis Holler, at Knoxville Holler, soon to be a Chattanooga Holler. We're spreading out. The way we're able to do that is through your support. We're a reader-supported site. Thank you so much for everybody who has been helping us over the past year since we launched. That really helps. So support and subscribe at tnholler.com. Let's get to our guest, Congressman Cohen. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. How are you holding up through these pandemic times?
Well, it's been 8 weeks and about 3 days since we've been in this. I've pretty much been quarantined. I've gone to Washington twice to vote, once for CARES 2 and then for the supplement to CARES 2. I've been doing work through my office, both in Washington and Memphis, which have been working remotely. And we have been staying in touch with our constituents and trying to help them with PPP and PPP, PPE, unemployment insurance issues. We still have veterans issues, IRS issues, all type of things that you get as a congressman. Caucus has probably a call every day. There's some caucus meeting. We've got some minor committee, low-key committee hearings we've had, doing those all remotely by Zoom, and staying in touch. I just got finished with my press conference. I do a weekly press conference here in Memphis. I'm honored to be here with y'all. I was a Tennessee state senator for 24 years, and my reach was the state of Tennessee, and I was a Tennessee Democrat. And I'm still a Tennessee Democrat, but I'm more, Memphis Congressman, which is different. And it's nice to be people out there that are some of the folks that I represented when I was in the state Senate, or the issues they hold dear over the years. I guess when I was in the Tennessee State Senate, I was the most liberal, outspoken person in the Senate. We got the lottery passed, which has now got over $6 billion for education. And that was important. And it's it was a journey. It took me about 18 years from the time I introduced it to the time we got it started. And got it passed the legislation, got it going. And Tennessee Promise is part of the Tennessee Scholarship, lottery scholarship program.
So you used to be outspoken, and now you've become a real shy wallflower. But what you're saying is you've always been this guy, and you haven't changed. The office has changed, the guy hasn't.
Right. I'm the same person. I'm still on the same issues, trying to push for people's rights and justice and fairness, and supporting women and the right to choice, and First Amendment issues, and people who need help and need to step up for the American dream, for tax fairness. Some of the same issues we've been fighting. It's amazing. It's here we are in 2020, and we're still fighting the paycheck lending business, and people that take advantage of people through fraudulent means. A lot of things don't change, unfortunately. And so we still have to keep working on the same issues. There's still attempts to fight women's right to choose, and that's in the courts. And Governor Lee, if we're trying to stop it, and the chancellor or judge in Nashville said that he couldn't do that. Or I guess that was the appellate court, federal appellate court, said he couldn't do it. He's been stopped by the judge in Nashville on his voucher issue, education, tax on education, tax on women. Those things just have continued, and it seems like there's this part of Tennessee that has. It was amazing, because when I was in the Tennessee Senate, the Democrats were always the majority. The worst we did, I think, there was one brief period when we hit like 16 members, and then we reclaimed the majority. But we had as many as 22 members. We had as few as 16 just for a few months. We almost always had a majority, and now they're just 5 state senators. They're Democrats, and we always had the House, and we got things done. It wasn't the best, but we did well. And while I'm on here, I wanted to pay a special debt of gratitude and a memoriam to Senator Jerry Cooper, who passed away last month. He served with me for 22 of the years I was in the Senate. He served a few years after I left. He came a few years after I started. He was the most effective senator in the Tennessee State Senate. He got along with the House. He worked with the Navy team. He got along with all the governors. He got a lot done. He was a great guy, and he passed. I miss him. He was my best pal in the Senate.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. And, it does sound like a lot has changed numbers wise and agenda wise at the state level. I want to ask you about a couple specific things while you're on here and then talk a little bit about where we are with the virus. But, healthcare is obviously such a big issue here in Tennessee. We're number one in medical bankruptcies, number one in rural hospital closures per capita, at the bottom in infant mortality, at the bottom in opioid deaths, at the bottom in maternal mortality, all the things that the Republican supermajority doesn't often like to talk about. What can you tell us about Medicaid expansion? Should we be doing that here in Tennessee? Have you heard a good reason that we're not? And then on a bigger level, would you like to see that decision taken out of the state's hands with Medicare for all?
Well, I think we probably have to. I think the Affordable Care Act was a beginning. We should have done more, but we couldn't do more. We had Senator Kennedy pass, and we lost the 60 votes in the Senate, and so we had to take what we could through a particular type of procedure in the Senate that limited our ability to get what we wanted. We also had blue dogs at the time, and we needed blue dog support to pass the bill, and so we didn't get a public option. We should have had a public option, but it was still a strong step in the right direction. Tennessee giving up over $1 billion a year, not expanding Medicaid, is a crime. It's a foolish thing economically. Think about it. If you had a business that was going to come to Tennessee and give you $1.2 billion a year, think of the money that produces in jobs and in taxes. That money gets spent in your community and it gets sales tax hit, which we've got the highest sales tax about in the country. That would have produced money and paid for itself. And the state wouldn't have had to put anything into it for a while. And when the state did, it would have been made up for through not only the health care, but the dollars that came into the state that created those jobs and produced revenue. It's just a foolish thing to have occurred. And it's just astonishing. And that's why rural hospitals have closed and why a lot of people are poor, haven't been able to get TennCare, which is Medicaid, really. It's just insane. Doesn't look like the Tennessee General Assembly is ever going to get there. And therefore, the federal government does need to pass. And I'm a sponsor of Medicare for All. I've been a sponsor since I was started in the Congress in 2007. John Conyers had the bill. He was one of my political fathers, and a great man. And I sponsored that bill with him, and I've sponsored it ever since. AOC is nice. I like AOC. She's great. She does some great ideas, and she's firebrand, just like I am and was, and still am. But John Conyers had that bill, and there's not a lot you can come up with that's going to be that new that can really pass and make things happen. But Medicare for All is a start. That would be great. If Biden just lowers the age for Medicare to 55, that would be a great start too. But Medicare for All would be the best thing. But if we lower it to 50.
Right. I mean, it definitely seems like, especially in the wake of this virus, where we've seen millions of people lose their jobs, that the case for employer-based insurance has sort of been eviscerated. And it's shown us that is not something that we can count on. Even before the virus, when UAW went on strike and GM, the first thing they did was cut off their insurance. It just shows us how fragile that relationship really is. Can you talk about like Memphis specifically and what having some sort of Medicaid expansion or Medicare for All would mean to Memphis?
We have I think we're the second poorest city in America. We have a lot of problems with our unemployed now. This pandemic is going to go on, and our unemployment rate is higher, of course, as it is all over the country and all over the state, but it will continue to be that way. Now, we're fortunate that Federal Express is still operating major and delivering packages and goods, and there's still warehouse business going on, but that's not very high paying jobs. So many of our people do not have insurance, and we don't have a real good health network. We've got some community health centers that have been supported through the ACA and were supported through the CARES Act too with additional funding, but they are providing a lot of the health care in the inner city. We know about food deserts where people don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, but we also have health deserts. The hospitals have moved out of Memphis and moved to the suburbs. When I was a kid, and even not even a kid, an adult, very much an adult, Baptist Hospital, the largest physical plant, I think, hospital just about in the country, was right in the medical center down on Madison, 900 block of Madison. They decided to move out to beyond I-40, and they demolished the old Baptist Hospital. That was a gigantic structure. It is gone. And Methodists have stayed in the inner city, but Baptists moved out, and the hospitals have moved out, and they have not gone closer in. So people need health insurance, and Medicare for All would help us a lot. I digress a little bit, but my first major vote of my life that made a big difference was when I was a county commissioner in 1979. And there were 11 members of the Shelby County Commission, and we had a debate about whether to build a new community general hospital, a charity hospital, a community hospital. And it got down to there were 4 African-American commissioners and myself, and there was a 6th guy who might be for it, but he wasn't so much for it. He kind of played footsie with the Republicans, but he liked being chairman, which was more power and it paid more money. So basically the African-American members, particularly Vasco Smith, basically went to him and said, you need to vote for this. If you vote for it, we'll keep you as chairman. If you don't vote for it, we'll make Cohen chairman, because it was one of the Republicans, a guy named Pete Sisson, who was my friend, who was going to vote for me to be chairman. And so basically for him to be chairman, he voted for the hospital, and we got the med, which is now it's got a new name now, but it's the community hospital. And that was a 6-5 vote, by 1 vote, and I put together the compromise and the method to make it happen. The first thing a public official needs to do, in my opinion, is to give people health care. Get them alive, keep them alive. Second thing is to educate them. And the third thing is to find them a job. That's our 3 major priorities. And I was proud to help be the person to cast that vote to build the med, the charity hospital in Memphis, then to get the lottery passed to help people with their education. And now we got to help people find jobs, and we're doing it.
I saw you on CNN a few weeks back. Early on in this, you were very critical of Governor Lee's responses, the way he was sort of slow to react, slow to issue a mandate, slow to close us down. What's your feeling about the general response in Tennessee now, a few weeks later, how it's been handled, and are you concerned about the way that we're opening up the economy?
I was concerned because he took a while. It took him a while to put a stay-at-home order in, and then when he did, it was first he made it look like, and some people thought it was a stay-at-home order. It was not. It was more of a stay-at-home advisory. And
suggestion.
Then right, and then when it kind of got a little bit more firm, a little later, he still didn't make it apply to churches, and that's where some of your biggest crowds are. I listened to a fellow last night on Lawrence O'Donnell, and he said, is an epidemiologist. He said the worst place you can be in terms of being vulnerable to the virus is a place where, of course, a lot of people indoors in a room with not great ventilation, and where there's a lot of speaking and a lot of singing. Singing is even a better spreader of the virus when somebody doesn't know they are asymptomatic or don't know they have it. Well, where's that? That's church. That's singing, and that's preaching, and that's lots of people crammed into old buildings, generally in a lot of places where there's not great ventilation. So the idea that he didn't make it apply to churches just didn't make sense. So he didn't do good there. I think we might have opened a little early. I think a lot of Republican governors have been responsive to Trump, who wanted people to open. He needs the economy to get going. We all want the economy to get going, but there should not be the cost of life. And that's what Dr. Fauci has made clear, that we're going to be sacrificing people's health and people's lives if we open too soon. And the only way we'll find out if we open too soon is if you have another peak and then comes back in a major way. New York has gone down. The curve has been flattened. And in certain other cities, probably, I'm not sure, but I think like maybe Detroit might have flattened and New Orleans might have flattened, but some of the places got hit first, Washington State. But places like Tennessee have not. And a lot of the places which are Trump country, red states, have seen it go up and it's continued to go up. I saw a disturbing report this morning that the 10 spots that they say are the new hot spots, one of them is Nashville, and Nashville is over 72% increase from last week in the amount of positive cases that have been detected. And we were like one of the top 3 spots in the country was in Nashville. So if we open up too early and it costs us lives and puts a strain on our health system, it's a mistake. And I told Governor Lee on the phone, I told him twice that he needed to have a stay-at-home order. We had a conference call with the Congress people, and I had my chance to speak, and I told him that, respectful and listen. Nobody else said much. Bill Rowe kind of said something as a doctor and a retiring member of Congress. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I know what Congressman means about Mississippi and Arkansas patients come to Memphis, but he was a little bit supportive, but it wasn't saying do it. And then the next week when I said do it, he came around and King kind of gave us a little suggested order about 2 hours later after Bill Frisk gave him the flag to say it's okay to do it, get started. He still, most people were just, whatever you say, Governor, is fine. We're with you. Whatever you do is okay. I mean, there was no leadership at all shown from our congressional delegation at that time. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's oriented towards small business. He's very religious, but I think he's also oriented toward Trump. And I think he's got a tough job, but he's a nice guy. But you remember the White Album, the Beatles' White Album?
Yeah.
Remember it. You got it later than remember it. I got it later. But there's a ditty in there about the Queen at the end, and it goes, Her Majesty's a very nice girl, but she doesn't have a lot to say. Her Majesty's a very nice girl, but she changed from day to day. And that's kind of like what Governor Lee is. He's a very nice guy, but he doesn't have a lot worthwhile to say.
I would say that's a generous way of putting it. I think you're probably right. He's probably a nice guy, but frankly, I don't care how nice you are. I think these guys are all nice guys, but unless you vote nice, I'm not really that interested in that. Anybody can be nice at a party, but are you voting to fight for people? Are you voting to fight for your donors and the people that support your campaign? And I appreciate how outspoken you've been throughout your time out there. Talk to me a little bit about your favorite person, Donald Trump. Tell me about how, the way that he has responded to this is sort of a realization of the fears and the predictions of everybody who was critical of him. He has lied, he has shirked responsibility, tried to have it both ways. What has he done right? And if there's anything, or what would you have rather have seen him do? What would an actual president have done during these times? I guess that's my question.
Well, first thing, they had not gotten rid of President Obama's pandemic team that he had stationed in the White House to prepare for such a situation. And they would have been there on the ground with a game plan and ready to go on day one. Number two, he wouldn't have got rid of the people that were embedded in Beijing, working with the Chinese on their health system, which we'd had there working through the World Health Organization, and they would have been there. But instead, he got rid of that group too, and got rid of that opportunity to learn exactly what was going on in China and be able to prepare us better. A good president would not have cut off payments to the World Health Organization. If there's ever a time that you need to work together with the WHO to cure what is a pandemic for the world, not just the United States, but a world problem in which we can't escape because the virus does not know borders, even if you cut off China. And the cutoff from China was cutting off Chinese nationals from coming into America. You could be in China and come back to America. You just couldn't be Chinese. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. It's not, the Chinese aren't the only carriers of the virus, although Trump might have thought that. And then you'd have gotten started with testing immediately. You'd have accepted the World Health Organization's tests and had them available and been using them in February instead of turning them down and having the CDC try to prepare their own and find out that they had defects in their manufacture. They were affected. That put us back 3 or 4 weeks. You would not have gone on television constantly and said that the Chinese were wonderful, and Xi was doing right and very transparent and praising him, and then saying we're in great shape. He was in Davos in late January. It's supposed to be a problem. I said, control. It's not going to be a problem. And then we had one person.
You're breaking up a little bit. I'm sorry to cut you off. You're breaking up just a little bit. We're hearing most of what you're saying, and I think that what you're saying is absolutely right. He was very complimentary of China until he decided that he needed to use them as a scapegoat. We've now seen a strategy memo from a Republican advisor or consulting firm, essentially telling them to blame China, and that's been their playbook this entire time. I'm not going to keep you too long. I appreciate all the time you've given. You break it. It looks like I can see a little bit better now. There are a few more personal questions, Congressman, that I've been told to ask you when we put out the word that you were going to come on. Do you have an answer for? I can hear you. Do you have an answer for what is your favorite chicken place in Memphis?
Well, amazingly enough, and I know I'm supposed to say there's a lot of, and I used to go to Gus's when I drive to Nashville and get off the highway and go up to when I was in the country. But my favorite chicken place is really Super Low grocery store on Madison. They've got the best fried chicken in town, and it's a little known spot, big old grocery store. But they have the best chicken at Super Low. I like Church's too, but I like Popeye's sandwich. It's spicy sandwich is fantastic. Fried chicken is one of my Achilles heels. I love fried chicken. It's got a lot of calories. It's, you got to watch it, but I like it. I don't eat KFC. KFC was a great bucket to have as a side.
Right. That was confusing for a lot of people.
Everybody thinks I'm this colonel, and I love the KFC. Barr was Chicken Barr last May when he didn't show up to testify.
Right.
He didn't two attorneys, Barry Burke and Norm Eisen, to question him. He's morphed into a vulture, and he's nibbling and gnawing at the bones of the carcass of the rule of law now, as he's just totally emasculated and destroyed it. So we hope he comes and appears. Whether to ask him a question or not is an issue, because I think basically the better thing to do would be just to lay out his crimes.
Right. What did you make of him dropping the charges against Flynn? I mean, that seems like just naked corruption.
I think it is. I think there was to ask that the charges, to withdraw the case and dismiss the case after he pled guilty, I think twice, and made it clear to the judge that it was knowing and voluntary guilty plea. He lied to the FBI. He lied about telling Kislyak before he got in his position as National Security Advisor to don't worry about the sanctions, because we're coming in and we'll take care of it. That's a questionable act concerning with the Logan Law, as far as a civilian dealing with a foreign power. Obama was still president, and he lied. And he was in Moscow sitting at a table with Putin some years earlier with Ms. Stein, the libertarian candidate or liberal, whatever party is, Green Party, I guess. But what was her party? Was she liberal, green, libertarian?
She was Green Party.
I mean, that was Gary Johnson was libertarian. But he was working for Turkey. He lied about it. There's a reason he lied to Pence about it, because he knew that there was a connection with Russia. And we're going to find out eventually more than Mueller found out. And there was never in history has the Justice Department done such a thing. One of the prosecutors in that case, was in the Stone case, came out and wrote an op-ed in the Post yesterday saying how it's just eviscerated the rule of law and the idea of equal protection before the law. And that if you're a friend of Trump, which is what you'd see in a dictatorship or an autocracy, you get one brand of justice, and if you're not, you get a different brand. The lady he quoted from the FBI report about the interview, Ms. McCord, came out and she said she stated what she had said, and that there was material charges, and he should have been. It was right that he pled guilty because he was guilty, and that it is unheard of that they would try to dismiss the case. Now, the judge doesn't have to accept that dismissal, and I hope the judge doesn't, and I hope the judge sentences him, because then Donald Trump will have to pardon him, and he will pardon him. And what Barr did was jump in there as a defensive back and intercept the pass to stop Trump from having to pardon him. And this was like a judicial pardon. But Trump will have to do it if the judge takes his guilty plea and sentences him, which he should. And then Trump will have to bear the political problem, or he'll have to be in jail until after the election, at least. The Stone thing was just as bad, and 4 prosecutors dropped out after the Stone case. Never before have somebody jumped in and said, no, you're within the sentencing range. And Stone lied to the Congress about Russia, about his involvement with Russia. There's a reason Stone and Flynn lied about Russia, because it wasn't a Russia hoax. It was Russia interfering in our elections. Mueller showed it and made it clear. He couldn't show that there was active participation and by the Trump campaign. There were Trump associates who were actively involved with Russia, that Trump's people gave them polling data and all. I think it's going to come out clearer than ever, but it was a very disturbing situation with the Flynn case, and we'll have to depend on the judge. And of course, today it's being argued for the Supreme Court. Does Trump have to show us his taxes? And he should. There's a statute. It'll be, every court has ruled that way. And if the Supreme Court rules and differently, it'll be another blow to justice. We're seeing America, as seen by the founding fathers, as being a rule of law and not a rule of man, not a king, but a system of 3 branches of government that check each other, and a judicial branch is being destroyed by this man. This man is a narcissistic, sociopathic, grifting, lying, misogynist, adulterating criminal. And when he leaves office, he should be prosecuted and he should go to jail.
So how do you really feel about him? Let me just back you up on everything you just said. I am right there with you. And it's such a relief to hear you say it out loud. I know you say it all the time, so I know this is not like an exclusive that we have or anything, but I think I might make what you just said my ringtone, because it really helps to hear it. You know, I completely agree. I think the Russia stuff, there's a lot of there that people don't realize. Anybody that says there isn't hasn't read the Mueller report, which I did cover to cover. It's very damning. The Ukraine stuff is damning. Everything has been damning. It's just, there's so much damning stuff that we can't even keep up with it all. And I think that's what he's counting on. But once he's out of office, you know, I think that's sort of the gamble that he's making, is if he starts doing this Obamagate stuff and turning his, you know, Justice Department on Obama, he better be careful, because once he's out of office, he's setting a precedent. And there's a lot more where it came from with him, and more skeletons in his closet. One last, yeah.
That's the thing. It's not
right. There's nothing there. Exactly.
Nothing there. There's no Obama gate. That shocked me. This man is, he turns whatever he's done on somebody else. It's amazing what he does. And there's Trump gate. There is Trump, you name it. Trump University, that wasn't even Trump kindergarten. It was a ripoff. It was a fraud. And he said, I don't settle cases. He settled for $25 million. And he paid off Stormy, and he paid off Miss August McDougal, and that's how he got elected.
Please don't forget when he stole from his own charity.
Right. He can't even be a trustee of a charity in New York State. And here he is, the trustee of the biggest kind of not-for-profit, the United States government in the world. But he's a crook. He is a crook.
Yes, he is. You're 100% right. One more thing I want to ask you about, and then I'm going to let you go. Justin Amash, what do you make of what he's doing?
Got a great first name.
Thank you. I agree with that.
You know what he's doing? I understand where he's coming from. He's an ideologue. He's a real libertarian. You could look at the votes on the board, you'd always see like one vote that'd be different from all the other votes, and it'd be Justin. So oftentimes it was a present vote, a blue vote rather than a red or green, but he would vote, he had his principles, and he's a smart guy. He did come out against Trump, that getting kicked out of the Republican Party. Some of the better people on the Republican side over the years have been against Trump or couldn't stand him. Some spoke, some didn't, but many of them quit. And they were like the blue dogs of the Republicans. They were the more liberal Republicans. They quit because they couldn't stand Trump. I think Amash will, unfortunately, it looks like he might take more votes from Biden than he will from Trump. And I think that's unfortunate. if he took more votes from Trump, it'd be great. But I think he's going to take some anti-Trump votes that are libertarians, so it might hurt the effort, and that's unfortunate. But he's on an individual trip. That's his thing, and kind of like the congressman in Kentucky that made us come back and vote because he was on his thing. He's kind of like Justin Amash too.
Yeah, I just, I appreciate his independent streak and the things that he said. But I just think this is potentially really damaging. And I hope that he puts a stop to it before it gets too out of hand, because otherwise I think we could be looking back in the rearview mirror. And the thing about these things is we never really know. So he's got the cover of that, but I wish he would just get out of the way and, throw his support behind Joe. I don't see that happening though. Uh, as just a farewell here, you're a Jewish congressman in Tennessee. I am a Jewish man living in Tennessee. I ran, thinking that was going to be a problem. It never was. James Mackler is running for Senate as a Jewish man. It hasn't been a problem for him as far as I know. Being Jewish in Tennessee as a congressman, what's that journey been like? Has that ever come up, as an issue, or, has that been something that, you've just worn with pride throughout your career?
It hasn't caused me a problem. I have ever lost a race that I should have won. I lost I shouldn't have won. The difference, but it's been out there. When I first ran for county commissioner in 1978, my opponent was a guy named Mike Tooley, and he put on his campaign signs a shamrock. And I didn't think too much about it. Somebody told me, "So why do you think he's got the shamrock on?" I said, "Well, I don't know." And he said, "Because he wants to say he's Irish, which means, what are you? You're Jewish." And so it was an indirect way to do it. And that's been around. And I've heard it. It was funny. One time when I ran for governor to promote the lottery and take tax off food and ethics. That was back in '94, and probably finished 5th of 8 without spending much money and won the debates. So I went into a little radio station in Dixon, Tennessee one morning, and I went in there, and the guy, we were talking about guns, and the older man who was the ran the station, he said, "Cohen, you Jewish?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Good luck."
That sounds about right.
Yes, sir.
Well, everybody loves Israel around here, so they sort of equate the two, and I guess in some ways that works out. Congressman Cohen, again, I really thank you for jumping on here with us. I thank you for being as outspoken as you have been, not only about this corrupt president, but also about something that I care very deeply about, which is Medicare for all, and getting everybody health care in this country. I think this virus has really held up a mirror to our problems. Sick leave, Medicare for all, better wages for workers, making sure people are taken care of. And those are things that you didn't need a virus to be fighting for. So thank you for that. And I really appreciate that. And maybe you can come on here down the line and talk to us again sometime.
I'd be happy to, Justin. It's nice to see you. And I hope you run and find a district you can win in. You got to find a time. It's all timing and politics in the right district. And so find a district where you can win. It might be, I don't know, what's your home district?
I'm in Glen Cassidy's district. So, that's our issue here.
Good luck.
Good luck. Exactly. That's, as a wise man once said. One thing I want to do, first of all, I want to send you a Holler hat if you'll take it. And I'll do that regardless. But we sometimes ask folks to say your name and follow the Holler, if you would. Would you throw us a follow the Holler?
This is Steve Cohen in Memphis. Follow the Holler.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'll talk to Bart about getting you a hat. I would have done it anyway. That wasn't bribery. Congressman Cohen, thank you so much.
You're welcome to be at the show and have good Tennessee dads out there.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.